Live yet. Oh, there we are. We're live here on August 20th, and we're discussing the Edmonton real estate market as to what happened in this last week. And if you haven't yet watched my video, I launched one on Saturday talking about the month of July. So you'll want to be able to see the whole month at a glance. When we look week to week, things don't always look completely accurate. And I have had some questions about areas, and I don't cover all the areas on purpose. I'm covering the areas that I am, not familiar with. I work all over the place, but these are the areas that I want to spotlight. If you have questions about the areas, you can comment, and then if I have time to answer them, then I will. But there's reasons. Someone asked, why don't you cover Leduc? That's because I don't usually work in the Leduc market, and so I don't usually cover Leduc. I will be talking about some other questions like Windermere bungalows and university area like Garneau. All those questions I will be answering, and the detached infills in Southside and Westside infills. So we'll talk all about that in a minute, but I'm just going to go over what has happened and what is going on right now currently for single family home listings. So currently right now we have the just over 2296 listings. I was going to say square feet, definitely not square feet. So very similar to last week. We didn't see a whole lot of change. It is August. The consensus is right now, it's the last piece of summer. People want to take advantage of our summer months because school is starting for kids next Thursday in the public school system. And they start for Thursday, Friday, then they have the long weekend off, and then they're back right at it again on Tuesday. So if people are families and they're looking at taking advantage of the summer, they're not going to be listing their houses here right away. However, there still are listings going up, like one of ours is going up live this Friday before the long weekend. Now, if you take a look in St. Albert, there's a little less that came on the market compared to the week before. Sherwood Park is pretty much the same, and Spruce Grove is pretty much the same. You'll notice that I have dropped off Beaumont because we're no longer going to focus on those areas. Just these S neighborhoods, I guess you could call it: St. Albert, Sherwood Park, Spruce Grove, and that is it. Now, obviously, there are other neighborhoods in the city here, but for the time of us looking week over week, year over year, those are the areas that I'm just going to focus on. So how many deals went pending in the last week? Pending sales are properties that have been under contract that are on MLS. So if someone bought through a builder, like one of our clients, it's not going to show up in the stat because they don't track everything unless they've listed their properties on MLS. So if we take a look at what has happened in the last 7 days in Edmonton, we saw this pending sales go down from the week before. Nothing too alarming. This is quite normal. This is going to start to see a trend. St. Albert and Sherwood Park and Spruce Grove, very, very similar numbers from the weeks before. Again, that's also why we don't cover all the smaller areas. They're smaller and there's not as significant of a change week over week. But in Edmonton, we did see a little bit of a decline there. And again, it's August. And I'm predicting, I don't have a crystal ball, but I am predicting that the sales are going to be a little quieter this week, next week. And then in September, I have a feeling we may see a little bit of an increase. Those last minute people getting in so that they can get a house before Christmas. If you buy in September and your possession is in 60 days, that's just hitting you into November, early December. And then if you are looking to move in December, it is a very chaotic month because a lot of lawyers take time off, and also the land titles is closed. And so you're going to want to have a possession either before, I'd say the 15th, or after, like on January 2nd, 3rd, that kind of idea. It's going to be too much of a gong show. So if you are looking to move before the end of the year, you realistically are looking in September and October the latest. November is going to be rushed. Even if you are buying a vacant new house or a vacant resale house, the fastest you can do it if it's a cash deal. You can have a deal if you remove conditions on the one day. You can close in 7 days later if it's cash. You can do it with mortgage as well too, but you got to really make sure that you're lined up with everything. All your ducks in a row. Your lawyers need to be on board, and everything needs to be lined up. Now let's take a look and see what sold in the last 7 days. We have seen a little bit more of an increase in terms of how many conditions were removed in the last week. And that comes from deals that were either written last week or the week before. And if you take a look at last year in terms of the sales, what did we do this year this time compared to this year at this time compared to last year at this time. They're identical. For this exact week, we are identical in Edmonton. St. Albert was a bit stronger, and all the new build properties are starting to, because that's what's available, and those are starting to rise in price even since January of this year. The Spruce Grove has really grown. There's an area right at the tip of Spruce Grove when you're coming from Edmonton that used to be undeveloped, and it has developed quite a bit in the last year. So it's actually interesting to see the growth there, and that's why you're seeing stronger sales. Something of note is Sherwood Park, no matter if the market is hot or not. In Edmonton, it seems to stay very strong and consistent. So if you're looking for a property that's going to keep its equity and value over time, you're going to want to pick an area where the markets always stays the same, like consistently grows, and Sherwood Park is one of those. And then you've got pockets of Edmonton that are like that, but then you've got new build areas in Edmonton that do not do that. And why is that? New build properties tend to flux because you're competing against the builders. And builders, if they're giving incentives or they're price knocking their things down, or they're really high compared to resale, it's really hard to build that strong kind of positioning until the builders have left. That being said, there's areas like Rosenthal that are almost done being built. And so you will soon see that you can only buy resale in Rosenthal and you will no longer be able to buy new build. Seacourt still has the new build option in there, and they're a little bit bigger, so you will see that a little bit more. Now, let's dive into some questions. If you're watching live and you want to ask questions, feel free to comment, and I will see your comments, and then I'll be able to put them into the chat, and we can answer those questions. So for now, let's go to our broadcast from last week. And this person's asking, what are your thoughts on university area like Garneau regarding the potential to increase equity versus more outer Edmonton? So for those of you who are watching and you're not familiar with Edmonton, let's take a look at what the area looks like, first of all, so that you know what we're talking about, because maybe you're not all familiar with where Garneau is. So if you take a look at Garneau in Edmonton, it is close to the university area. So you can see right here, University Hospital, university area is right here, and Garneau is right in this section. Okay. Now, let me just zoom out here for a second. You can see it's right in central Edmonton, and Garneau has older homes. I'm going to show you what the homes are in terms of the sold. And this is a prime example of, if you're going to buy new, you're going to have to buy an infill property, which is one of the other questions we have posed in here, which I'll get to. So if you're comparing this central area to the outer skirts of Edmonton, the first thing is they're completely different houses because of the location. If you haven't been watching any sort of real estate, you'll know that real estate's number one rule is location, location, location. And the location is everything. Being in central Edmonton has its huge perks. For example, we just had the Folk Fest, which is right in this area. This is easy access to River Valley. It's obviously super close to the University of Alberta. It's also close to downtown and McEwen. So yes, there's a lot there to be living for a location, and you are paying premium for the land. However, when you live in the outskirts of Edmonton, are you a family? Because if you're a family, it's really expensive to live in this area, and it's not as affordable. So you can still as a family live here, but it's definitely a different lifestyle as a family. Now, you may have kids going into school over here, so it's actually really convenient, and you may have them involved in activities here, so it's also convenient. But these after-school activities are expensive, and so maybe you don't even have the ability to do that if you are living in these expensive houses, and you need to live in the outskirts in order to have your kids participate in these extracurricular activities, which at the end of the day is only about a 20 to 30 minute drive from the outskirts of Edmonton. So outside of here, you're also looking at the different types of homes. These homes are built the last 20 years or so. These homes are built sometimes 100 years ago. And so that's going to make a difference. And when you ask about the equity gain, anything close to the River Valley will always have a more stable growth in Edmonton in terms of the fluxing of up and down. So when you look at that and you look at the suburbs, you will see more of a flux in the suburbs depending on what area, like I just mentioned earlier about the new build. So again, in general, the equity is probably going to increase more, I believe, in the River Valley areas. It'll grow faster depending on what you do. So if you buy a house that needs to be completely renovated, you'll see that increase. But if you look at the areas in the newer areas, the growth isn't as much because at the end of the day, you're buying a newer home. There's not much change. The lots are a certain size. There's nothing you can really do. You can renovate the house, but the location is different. Location value for being outside on this side for families is you're super close to newer schools and you're close to the mall, you're close to the Henday, you're close to all these things. So both these have advantages, but in terms of the potential to increase, it also depends on what kind of house you're buying. If you're buying a house that's completely torn down and it's a mess and you don't do anything with it, that equity is not going to grow any better, but the land value will. So it all depends on what you're looking for. Now, let's just show you the solds in Garneau so you just have an idea of what the homes are selling for in Garneau. So we'll look at single family homes because that's what we cover here. And I'm going to look at solds because actas and pendings don't really show you the value of what things are selling for, what people are willing to buy. So in the last 60 days, we're having issues with LinkedIn. So hold on a second here. It's okay. We've had 7 properties sell in the last 7 days in Garneau. And the average price you can see is $588, but that's probably for like a smaller house. So you can see here, these are bungalows and look how small the square meters are. They're quite small. 810,000 is a 2-story. And I bet you, it's a full single family. It's not a half duplex or anything. And it is more original. You can see this is like the plaster ceilings where it has the curve there. This was $810,000. Newer kitchen, not brand new, but it's definitely newer because this house is definitely older than the newer houses you see in the new areas. So what you get to is you get more character, you get trees, a ton of trees. You can see that whole window is full of trees, but also to be careful with the sewer line as well, with the trees and the roots and whatnot. Yards aren't going to be massive big. You can see the garage and the roofs and the houses right next door. That was $810,000. The average price of $585,800. Let's look at this $588 or $85 one. Smaller house by far. This is probably like, I think it's just under 1,000 square feet, maybe a little bit bigger. Older windows and got the washing machine up here. And you've got a basement that's finished. These basements have lower ceilings too. The standard ceilings in the new areas are 8 foot. Sometimes you get 9 foot. These ones are definitely going to be on the lower side. And this is updated. That sold at $585,000, and that was a bungalow. Brand new to the market today is this property that's listed at $499,000 with no pictures. So you're likely buying this property for the value of the land, and you'll see quite common in Garneau as well too. If you want to go and take a look at new areas, let's say Secord, in that same price range, in 60 days, there was 31 properties that sold versus the 7 in Garneau because there's not as many for sale. And the average price is $514,000. So you think, the average price is not that much higher over there, but what you get is going to be different. So we looked at a house that sold for $585,000. That was a bungalow. This one also sold for $585,000. And what you're getting here is a 2-story that's significantly bigger, and it's a brand new build with warranty. So you can see here the difference that you're getting, much bigger square footage, and this one will have warranty. It's also got a much larger footprint, newer finishings, newer bones, newer windows compared to that. So you get a little bit more for your money in terms of the house, the location. You're just located further west than you are in Garneau. And the $810,000 property doesn't even exist in Secord. This one was the highest selling at $715,000. And it backs onto a green space, which is nice, and looks like a decent sized yard. And again, newer finishings throughout the house for $715,000. So for your family, this might have a lot more space, newer schools, and easy access to the roads for work. You can see why a lot of families want to move here. It is a lifestyle choice to move to the other more infill area. And to answer the person's question about, hey, why are properties so much more money infill wise in South and West? It's because they have to pay for the land. They're not going to get the land for $190,000 or $200,000. They're usually paying at least $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for the land. They're splitting it and then they are building it. And the cost of building these days, I don't know if you've looked, it's not cheap. So it's going to cost you a lot of money. Then there's permits that are involved. That's why the trend is that it is expensive. So there's nothing you can really do about that when it comes to infills. That's just what it is. Now, someone asked me about Windermere Bungalow's finished walkout basement. Now, we did feature this in one of our other videos before, and I will show you what's been going on there in the last 60 days. We'll just take a look at the Windermere area. Now, Windermere has a lot of different areas. They've got Langdale, they've got Glenridding. I'm just looking in Windermere proper, and I'm just going to look at the bungalows. Now, bungalows in Windermere can be single family, but they can also be condominiumized because they're a duplex product and they have condo fees. So I'm just going to put bungalow in the last 60 days in Windermere. And we had 6 properties sell. Let me just show you. And the average price was $1.2 million because there was a property that sold for $2.85 million. That was a bungalow, and $1.163. So you can see there's quite the range. The lowest price that sold was $836,000, and then it jumps all the way up. So lots of 800s, nothing in the 9s, and 1 and 2. Something I want to say about that, when you're looking at buying a house, maybe try so hard to stay away from the $900,000 price range. It is actually statistically the slowest house price to sell. And so if you're buying a house in the 800s and you're hoping it's going to be worth 900, you might even want to buy in the 700s because you'll have a higher chance of selling when it's worth 800 versus 9. Don't ask me why. It's just the stats I've seen time and time again when we've looked at properties that are 9. When you're at 900, some of the psychology is that you might as well spend a little bit more and you'll hit the $1 million price point. Now, I had somebody ask me a question live, and they're asking me if I like the Carlton area. To answer your question, I'm not going to state anything on YouTube live, whether I like or dislike a neighborhood. That is totally up to you. There's so many things that could stipulate if you like or not like an area. There's things like schools, where do you work, where's your family. I think it's really important if you're thinking about safety to take a look at the Edmonton Police crime map, but I'm not going to tell you I like it or I don't like it, because that is a comment that is not really based on logic or what's the word? There's no evidence behind it. It's just opinion. So I can talk to you about the areas and what they sell for and the values, but I cannot say, do I like it or not like it, especially not on YouTube. With my clients that I work with, we will talk in more candidly because I'm now understanding my clients' needs and making sure I understand that to make an opinion on recommendations of if I like the area for my clients or not. Now, if we take a look at the next comment, let's see, there's another question here. We have, what do I think of the Uplands area? So Uplands area, I've done a video before. What I can tell you about Uplands is, we've mentioned this before, they are trying to develop themselves like Windermere. There are different sections in Uplands. So Uplands has the River's Edge at Uplands. There's the original Uplands area. There's Stillwater area. They're all in the Uplands area when you look at the map, but then the builders and developers have split it off depending on the developer area. There's the Stillwater area I don't recommend because of how narrow all the roads are in that space. And there's only one builder in that entire area, and there's no competition. The other areas like in Uplands, in River's Edge, you've got multiple builders to choose from and multiple types of homes to choose from. And there's a little bit more room to drive in there. And there's a few playgrounds now. There used to only be the one, but now there is 2 playgrounds. There's walking paths. If you're looking for that kind of thing, if you're looking for a quieter escape for now, that would be your place. But know that this is supposed to develop, and it has developed quite a bit in the last few years, and it continues to develop pretty strong. Last I checked, there was no busing out there because there wasn't enough people. Edmonton Transit doesn't put busing out there until there is enough people. So if you need transit, that place is probably not for you. There are certain areas in Uplands as well. You're going to see a lot of power lines. So if that's important to you, you might want to consider reconsidering that, because there's power lines everywhere and it's impossible to not see them. And there is areas for kids to play in. So if that's important, then you can check that box off. There are some resale in there, but most of it's still new. Because it's still a newer area, people just recently bought. So people who are selling haven't been in that house that long. Now I'll take a look at another comment we have in here. I've got gentrification. Okay. So this is a question that people ask all the time about older areas, and gentrification has been a thing that's been happening for years, right? They've been saying certain areas are going to develop because we're gentrifying it, yada, yada, yada. Without talking about a specific area, regardless of the gentrification issue, you need to just invest in an area based on the history of the neighborhood. If you are looking to buy a house, we always ask our clients the important questions of the areas that they need to live in, because what is the point of buying an area that potentially is going to grow if it's an hour from where you need to be, or if it has no amenities that you need as a family, or if it's super unsafe and you're going to risk that in hopes that something is going to change? It's no different than when Rogers started getting built. Everyone thought, oh, my downtown condo is going to be worth so much more now because of this newer arena. But that's not the case. So my thoughts on purchasing in those communities for that purpose is, I don't think you should be purchasing for that reason. I think you need to be purchasing based on understanding your needs and where you need to be as a family. Understand the history of that area and how the equity will grow and what your long-term plan is. And then you can make a decision on if that is a smart decision for your family or not. Hopefully that answers your question, but hello, Estefania. You're welcome. Okay. So look, this is the question that is about the new Valley West line. Remember, I just mentioned this, talking about gentrification. We cannot guess on a crystal ball that the value of the property is going to be so much higher or so much lower because of this thing that's going to happen, because of the arena, because of the gentrification, because of the new West Valley line. You need to look again at location of the specific house in the neighborhood. How does that neighborhood perform normally? And then you can make a decision of if this is a good value or not. If you currently live in the area and you're wondering, is my house value worth more because of that? I can tell you how much your house is worth today versus last year because of the sales, but I cannot look at because of the finishing of this valley line that's, let's be honest, going to be another 3-4 years out. Now, if you live in front of all that construction, is that going to impact your resale value? Probably, because it's inconvenient and nobody wants to live in a construction zone. If all the construction is gone, are people going to still want to have that? Are they going to still see the same issues? I don't know. It's the same thing as when I don't recommend clients to purchase a home backing or fronting a yard or backing the road or fronting a road, because less people want to buy the home, which then means less demand for your house, which then means less value for your home. So those are just general consensus. It's not just an overarching, oh, because of the fact that I live close to this, or because this area says it's being gentrified, I will buy in this area. If that's the reason you're buying, I highly recommend against it. You need to consult with your realtor who's going to give you that professional advice, right? They're going to give you information and educate you. It's really important that they're educating you. That's how we work with our clients, is that any realtor that I work with my clients, we are all about education, because you need to make your own decision. We're just here to help guide you and give you the answers that you need. Okay, I'll answer one more question before I have to jump off. So thoughts on Southwest areas like McGrath and McTaggart. So my initial thoughts, I don't know what your context is that Southwest in general is the most expensive area in all of Edmonton, generally speaking, and land, generally speaking, is more money there, including their homes. It is an older area. You don't have the brand spanking new areas or homes unless these houses were built later, because there are still some random empty lots throughout these older areas, and then they built new. There are renovated properties in here, but you have to understand, I have to understand what your context is, what you're asking me. But the Southwest tends to be more desirable. That's why the prices are higher in that area. If you ask me why, I don't know. I don't know why people pay more money for Southwest than West. I don't know why they pay more money for West versus North and Southeast. West and Southwest is kind of where we focus on, and it's been very good benefit for all of my clients who've moved in. I've not had complaints of the areas and the safety and whatnot. Obviously, we have pockets of crime everywhere, and that's not for you guys who were watching on YouTube to just hate on Edmonton. Every city has crime, right? So if you're looking for more questions to be answered, I will be back again next week, and I appreciate everyone's involvement today, and I hope you have a great, fabulous day.